All right, let's go over this 11 problem quiz that we had and see if we can clear up anything that needs to be cleared up. Remember, when you buy something for $800, there's more than one way to figure this out. When you have tax, for example, 7.5%, you have to know that you're going to pay the $800 plus 7.5% of the $800. Now, what most folks do is not wrong. It's absolutely fine. Most folks say, okay, it's $800, and I'm going to multiply that by the tax rate. Now, 7.5%, you got to move the point two places to the left. So it's 0.075. And there's your tax, $60. And then you have to add on, of course, the $800 for the actual merchandise. And that's 860. What I want you all to learn, and most of you, or some of you at least have learned it, is that when you have a number increased by 7.5% of itself, the total is the same thing as 100% of itself plus 7.5% of itself. That's the same thing as 107.5% of itself. So that's why, and a lot of people wonder where that one comes from. That's the 100%. That's the one times 800 is 800, and the 7.5% is the other $60. So you could do that if you, in your head, you say 100% plus 7.5% is 107.5%, which is 1.075. Multiply that by 800, and boom, you got the answer right away. Don't have to do it that way. Number two, in 2019, a TV cost $970, and in 2021, the price has gone down to $570. So it went down. So what is the percent decrease to the nearest 0.1%? You take the difference and divide it by the old. I like to say that way. It's a difference in, is it the price decreased or increased? Regardless, that's the difference. But then you divide it by the old. In this case, it decreased. So it's 970 minus 570 divided by 970, and you get 41.2%. And you can verify that. I'm going to send you this file after class. All right. Now, here's a tricky one. She wants to put some money in. And at 6% simple interest means you put money in, you leave it in for a year, you get your money back, and you also get 6% of your money. That's the interest. It's not compounded daily, weekly, monthly, continuously, any of that stuff. So the amount deposited is unknown. What you don't do, don't take 6% of $800 and add it on, because you don't get that much unless you put that much in. We're not putting in $800. We're putting in something less. Again, that X is considered to be 1X because it is. So you're going to take the unknown amount to deposit, add 6% of it to it. That means it's 106% of it, or 1.06. Divide 800 by 1.06, 754.716, which rounds off to 71.72. But it says round to the nearest dollar. And I will caution you, I will beg you on the test to round it the way I ask you to, or you're going to lose the entire points for that. If it's a 10-point question and you round it off to the nearest penny when I've asked you to round it off to the nearest dollar, then you're going to lose 10 points. Not because you didn't do the math right, but because you didn't follow the directions. 755. This is one of my favorites. Number four, donuts, 675 a dozen, tax included. Do not multiply 675 by the tax rate, because the tax is not on 675. It's on the price before tax, and we don't know what that is. What we do know, for example, I let XB represent the price before tax. I'm going to add on to that. Now, 7.75%, move the point two places to the left, is 0.0775. Oh boy, times X, and that's the selling price. So this is again 1X, and 1 plus 0.0775 is 1.0775X. You divide 6.75 by that, and you round it off properly to $6.26. Now it asks for how much is tax. 626 is the donuts, and it asks for that too. So the tax is 675, which is the total minus the price before tax, which is 49 cents, or $ point 49. Do not put 0.49 cents. That means something, but it doesn't mean 49 cents. 0.5 cents is a half a penny. 0.49 cents is a little less than that. So be sure you get that right. You miss one of these, you missed it all. I know I'm very strict about that. Okay, here she goes with her BMW, wanting to sell it on consignment. Consignment means I'm going to sign it over to you for the purpose of selling it, and I will give you a certain percent of the selling price. And that's critical. 15% of the selling price means 15% times the selling price. Now, Dr. Lemon wants her share to be 44,800. Well, the selling price, we don't know what it is. So we can't take 15% of it. And in particular, it's not simply adding 15% of 44,800, add that to that, because that would be the amount that the auto seller would get at 15% of that. And the auto seller doesn't get 15% of that. He gets 15% of the selling price. Oh boy. So 100% of X, which is the selling price, we don't know, minus 15% of X. Believe it or not, that's 85% of X. So we don't know the commission, but we do know what she wants left. And what she wants left is 44,800. And that must be the other 45% that the dealer doesn't get. And of course, you just divide both sides by 0.85, and you can verify that my answer is correct by using your calculator. I will send this file to you after class. Okay, so why didn't I round it up to the nearest dollar? It didn't say. If it's money in my class, if it's money and you aren't told to round it off to the nearest something else, the nearest dollar, nearest $100, then you always round it to the nearest penny. If I ask you to round it to the nearest dollar, but you round it to the nearest penny, you get no credit for it. Must pay attention. Number 6 is a rather difficult problem to work from scratch. Yeah, it is. We've had them before, and in the first 6 problems on page 5, we had one of these greatly explained out in detail on the following pages. So here's a little calculation. This is a drive out cost. You don't know the selling price, the sticker price, excuse me. You don't know the sticker price. So what you do is you take the total out the door price, 17,450. You subtract the fees, which are not taxable, 488.60. When you do that, you do 17,450 minus. Be sure you look at every. I missed it. See that? It's not 1740, it's 17,450. And sometimes my clicker doesn't work. 17,450 minus 488.60. 0.60 is optional. You can put it there or not. Now hit the equal sign, because if your calculator does the order of operations and you just say divided by, it'll divide 488.60 by 1.08. So we got to say equals here. Now that is going to be divided by 1.08. And there's the price before tax, 15,705. And that reflects 10% off the sticker price, which means what? This is the other 90% that's not off. So what is 15,705 90% of? It's some number times 0.9. To get that number back, you have to divide that, believe it or not, by 0.9, and the answer will get bigger. That's the nature of the beast. It's $17,450. All right, she wants this kitchen. And again, she wants to take money out of her retirement so that she has $128,000 left after the government gets 30% of the amount withdrawn. Notice the government does not get 30% of 128,000. Do not multiply 128,000 by 30%, add it on. You have to recognize that if the government gets 30% of the amount withdrawn, what's left is the other. Let's see, 100 minus 30 is 70. The other 70%, that must be the 128,000. So what? So 70% of the unknown amount withdrawn must be 128,000. You divide both sides by zero point 0.7, you get 182,857.14, and it says rounds to 182,857. Why does it say that? It says to the nearest dollar. So before you submit your answers, read the problem again and see if you've been instructed to round off. If it doesn't say round to the nearest dollar, then you would put the 14 cents there and you would get no credit if you didn't put the 14 cents. Now it says to the nearest dollar, you round it off to the nearest dollar, which is a 7 there, because 14's got to be at least 50 cents to round it up. It's not. So if you are asked to round it to the nearest dollar, but you don't, you will get no partial credit. I know I'm a tough taskmaster here. Spurs win 45, lose 37. What percent have they won? It's pretty simple. It's the number of wins divided by the number of games. It's not 45 divided by 37. You divide 40. Well, what's 45 and 37 losses? 82. Oh, there's 82 games. They won 45. Take out your calculator and it'll tell you 0.0549. Let's go ahead and do that. 45. Talk about the rounding off here. Divided by 82. And that is equal to 0.5487. Move the point two places to the right to change it to a percent. That's 54.87. And it says to the nearest, what? 0.1%. That's where the 8 is. Is the 7 big enough to bump it up to a 9? And the answer is yes, it is. It's 54.9%. Very tricky. Okay, the government grant problem. Dun, 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 gives people a lot of trouble. The government's going to give us $1,250,000 for a program. The college must contribute 5% of the total budget. 5% of the total budget is not 5% of 1,250,000. That's not the total budget. What's the total budget? We don't know. However, here's the good news. It says the remainder after the 5% is come up with by the college, then what's left is the other, well, 5% taken away. Oh, that leaves 95%. So the grant, $1,250,000, must be the other 95% of the total budget. So what is $1,250,000? What is it 95% of? Well, divide 1,250,000 by 0.95. That's 95% as a decimal. And you get, oh my goodness, $1,315,789.47. Some people write that for their answer. That's not the answer. Why? Because the question is, how much money is the college required? And the answer is 5% of the total budget. We've got the total budget, multiply it by 0.05, and on your calculator, it can look kind of cool, like this. 1,250,000 divided by 95% is 0.95. And that's equal to that. I can just multiply it by 0.05 right now because the college pays 5% of the total budget. And that's 65,789.47. Well, shouldn't I round it off to 65,489? No. First of all, it says round to the nearest penny, but even if it didn't say that, if it's money, you always round it to the nearest penny in my class, unless I ask you to round it to something else. Marvelous. Number 10 gives people a lot of trouble. This is probably the easiest way to work it. And I got this from an actual home builder way back in a long time ago. One of my high school classmates became a home builder. Salesperson, it's 5%. The insurance, 2%. Salary is 20%. Advertising, 3%. And that's all of the selling price. The selling price is multiplied by each of those. Now, the rest, well, what you have to figure out what percent is the rest. So 5 plus 2 plus 20 plus 3. Oh, that's 30% of the selling price of the house. Now, the other 70% is the lot, labor, and material. Oh, well, let's see. I do the labor first because you have to multiply like 500 times $25 for of labor per hour. So I do it that way. You don't have to, but it gets trickier if you don't pay attention to your numbers. It's 500 times 25 plus 72,000 for the lot plus 145,000 for the materials. That turns out to be 229,500. Now that is the other 70%. So you divide that. I'll show it to you on the calculator because this is worth doing. Again, if you do lot first, if you say 72,000, if you say plus 500 times 25, that will work if your calculator does the order of operations. This one here does not. So it doesn't in order. So I'm going to say, well, how much is the labor? 500 hours times 25 bucks an hour. That's equal to that. Then I'm going to add the lot. Oops, got to move this out of the way. 72,000. And the materials, 145,000. And you got to look at each key, each number before you hit the next key. That's $229,500. And that is the lot, labor, materials. And the other little piddly things total 30%. So this is the other 70% of the selling price. So I have to divide that by 0.7 to see what is it 70% of. And the answer is 327,857.142. It says rounds to 327,900. Why did I round it? Because always, always, always go back and read the problem to see if it has any information about rounding. Round your answer to the nearest $100. Well, find the decimal point, and the one to the left of that is units. To the left of that is tens, and to the left of that is hundreds. So it's 800. So it's either 800 or 900. Just depends on the 5. The 5 is big enough, barely, to bump it up to 900. If you put 327, if you put anything but $327, you're going to lose all the credit for that, which is sad. I'll report to you, we had this problem 11 with different numbers on the first day of class. Now, some folks are still not sure how to work this problem, or they're sure they don't know how to work the problem. So there were 4 A's, 6 B's, 12 C's, 3 D's, and 2 F's. Now, it said what percent of the students got A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. A couple of people in yesterday's class thought that this was a multiple choice. It's not. It's what percent were A's. So you have to add them all up, you get 20. Look at page 6. It's just like this. So you do 4 out of 27. Let's go ahead and take our little handy-dandy calculator here. 4 divided by 27. That's 0.1481, yada, yada. Change it to a decimal, either mentally or physically, by thinking that's 14.81%. Oh, 14.81. Now this says 14.28. Well, that's wrong. Another typo. Jeez. Okay, that's better. Better I find them now than after I send it to you. 14.81%, which rounds to 14.8 because the 1 is not big enough. Okay, B, 6 divided by 27. There's a bunch of 2's. Move the point 2 places to the right, you get 22.22. And the second 2 is not big enough to round it to 22.3. So it just gets chopped off and make it 22.2%. Now 12 divided by 27 is 0.4 repeating. Move the point 2 places to the right, you get 44.44. And that rounds because it says to the nearest 0.1%. That means change it to a percent and give me one decimal place. I still have folks telling me the answer is 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.1. No, this is the way to do it. And it's on page 6 of your materials. All right. How many D's were there? Well, there were 3. So 3 divided by 27 is a bunch of ones, which is 11.1%. Well, you move the point 2 places to the right, you get 11.11. Round it to the nearest tenth of a percent, and you get 11.1. That's what it means to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Change it to a percent, round it to one decimal place. And there were 2 F's. And so 2 divided by 27 is 0.074074. You move the point 2 places to the right, and you get 7.40. The zero is not big enough to make it 7.5, so it stays at 7.4%. All right. I'm going to stop recording. I can do it.